Mass looting events are becoming widespread. I don't want to act like it's every other day or every day, but we're seeing more and more stories pop up in the news about raids on stores where large groups of people run into a store, take whatever they want, and leave. And I've talked about how I knew kids who used to do this back in the day in Chicago. They would raid, so they call it 7-Eleven. You get 50 kids after school, they all run at the same time, grab whatever they want, run out. Nobody gets caught. Well, now, the CEOs of Target, Best Buy, CVS, and other retail chains are asking Congress for help amid the crime surge. That's a bold ask, considering that Congress is rather divided and probably can't get anything done. But we'll take a look at exactly what kind of help they're asking for. How much you want to bet it's a dumb bailout or something. But I had an idea just, sitting here and reading the story and about the things that the CEOs of these companies had said in the past. And I was just wondering, have you considered asking, I don't know, maybe the police to help keep your stores safe? Oh, I'm sorry, what was that? You, the CEOs and these companies, took the side of the rioters during the riots? And now you think I'll care that you're upset? First of all, your big box stores I don't really care about in the first place. I can appreciate the convenience of a CVS, Target, or Best Buy and other retail chains, but I'm more worried about the mom and pop shops. See, last year during the COVID lockdowns and the smash and grabs and the ones that are happening today, it was the mom and pop shops that were completely destroyed. When someone throws a brick through the window and then steals everything, mom and pop shops struggle to reopen, and Target is a massive multinational billion-dollar corporation. Well, I think they're multinational, although I do think it's funny that I'm pretty sure in Australia there's an identical Target corporation, but it's not even the same company. It's just not related. Just someone was like, hey, let's just steal their business model and do it here, and they can't do anything about it. Different country, right? So these companies, and I'll show you the proof, put out these statements saying like, oh, we support Black Lives Matter as they went around smashing and destroying cities. You see, these big box stores loved it when it was your store being destroyed. They loved it when it was the mom and pop shop being permanently put out of business by a Molotov cocktail. Because it meant their market share was going to go up a lot. It meant they could absorb the damage. When Target was being raided in Minneapolis, they were like, well, we're mourning because they know they can pay for it. Well, now that their competition, the little guy, has been dutifully crushed by the extremists, Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they're now happy that they've taken that market share. But now they must defend it in the best way crony capitalist systems do, by calling on government. I don't know what you call it. It's it's a weird government capitalist kind of like a fascism. Hey, it's fascism. The lucrative merger between corporation and state. Now the big I shouldn't say multinational necessarily, but the big, billion-dollar box stores can go to the government and say, look, it was fun when they were crushing the little guy, but now they're hurting us. Can we get some assistance here? Wait till I show you the previous reporting, what they were saying. But let's talk about what's going on here from CNN. They report the CEOs of Target, Best Buy, Nordstrom, Home Depot, CVS are among a group of 20 retail leaders who sent a letter Thursday to Congress expressing their concern over a recent wave of brazen store robberies in major U.S. cities and urged lawmakers to take action. The group called on Congress to pass legislation that would deter criminals from being able to easily resell stolen merchandise, specifically online. Quote, as millions of Americans have undoubtedly seen on the news in recent weeks and months, retail establishments of all kinds have seen a significant uptick in organized crime in communities across the nation, said the letter. Criminals are capitalizing on the anonymity of the internet and the failure of certain marketplaces to verify their sellers. As a result, retailers are a target for increasing theft. In the current environment, criminal networks are unscrupulous businesses have exploited a system that protects their anonymity to sell unsafe, stolen, or counterfeit products with little legal recourse. The RILA letter added, which was also signed by Dollar General, Levi Strauss, Kroger, and Foot Locker. The group urged Congress to pass a bill that would make it easier for consumers to identify exactly who they are buying from and harder for criminals to hide behind fake identities as they try to sell stolen merchandise online. That's really interesting. You know what this would further do? Well, let me just explain for you the evil of these people. As the rioters were destroying the brick and mortar mom and pop shops and the big box stores were effectively the only places people could go, and they benefited from it. These companies probably realized, but how do you ransack, riot, and destroy online businesses? I got an idea. Let's use our weight as billion-dollar corporations to pressure the government into issuing hard restrictions on online sellers. That way, not only can we destroy your mom and pop shop, we can destroy your online mom and pop shop as well. Now, some of this is not all bad. I'm not going to just scream and rant and say, oh, it's the end of the world or whatever. There is absolutely some benefit to, laws protecting people from garbage sellers. How many times have people tried going online to buy something only to get scammed? How many times there's one scam I really love. They'll be like, I'm selling a couch. Just, send me half the money and then I'll come and deliver it. And then what happens is there'll be like a picture of a couch. And then someone will get a little model replica couch and be like, I never said it was full size. And then they say, buyer beware, caveat emptor. Well, I do think there's some benefits to dealing with online scamming, especially because there are people who are very hard to trace. But let's be real. I think the bigger play here is big box stores sell online. They don't want competition. It's not about looting or anything like that. Look at this. Here we go. NBC Bay Area, May 30th. Target CEO on nationwide protests. We are a community in pain. As they burned things to the ground. That was their response. Among the unrest across the country this week over the disturbing video of George Floyd incident, they say, the Target CEO Brian Cornell wrote a memo. We're a community in pain. The pain is not unique to the Twin Cities. It extends across America. The murder of George Floyd has unleashed pent-up pain of years, as have the killings of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. We say their names and hold a too long list of others in our hearts. You want to say 200 displaced team members at the Lake Street store, Minneapolis, and employees in other Target stores that were damaged will receive their full pay and benefits in the coming weeks. He also vows to rebuild and bring back the store. Target will remain Target will be taking donations to affected communities for the areas of heaviest damage. Okay, here's what you could do. Here, hold on, just I'll pitch this idea to you guys. When they loot and destroy your store, you come out and say, of course, we're not happy with police brutality, but the looters and the rioters who attacked our store are criminals, and we need the support of the police to prevent this from happening again. But you see, Target, as I stated, these companies, come on. How much you want to bet there's this meeting, right? And Target CEO and the board of directors, they all sit down and they're like, okay, how much damage have we incurred from the looting and ransacking at our Target locations? And they're like, well, we had about $40,000 to $50,000 in merchandise destroyed. And then with the exterior damage, we're looking at another $100,000 in damage. And they go, okay. And that affects our bottom line. How? Honestly, it's a rounding error for us. Last year we pulled in X billion dollars and, $150K for the store. We're going to have to replace it. But for the store, it is a decent hit, but it's a small percentage that I think we can absorb, especially considering the value we're going to get by the fact that all of our competition has just been wiped out. And they went, really? Oh, yeah. Good point. So how's our competition doing near the Lake Street store? I got to say, all the mom and pop shops were completely obliterated, will never reopen. So we may be at $150,000, but marketing, hey man, you can't buy marketing that good. You cannot buy market dominance for that rate. Totally worth it. And then you get some guy being like, so let me get this straight. For the cost of $150 to $200K in damages, we have effectively bought the complete obliteration of all of our competition in the area. That's right. Hot dog. Now, I'm not saying I know for sure or that literally every single store was destroyed, but come on, think about it. If you went, look at this, Best Buy to spend $1.2 billion with diverse businesses by 2025, June 24th. And of course, they go on to talk about George Floyd. We are just getting started. Okay. I saw the videos of people looting and ransacking all these big stores. I think there's a video of a Best Buy getting, broken into. They shoved the door down or something, like smashed the door. I'm willing to bet. You go to one of these unscrupulous, high-ranking, VPs, seniors, members of the board members and CEOs or whatever, and say, if you could legally, for $200,000, shut out all market competition in your area, would you spend it? They'd be like, yes. Okay, here's another question. If you could get all of your online, competition removed, would you do it? Yeah. How? All you got, this one's easy, right? The rioting is like, well, you can't make people riot, but when they do, you can make it worse. You can cheer for it. And now they're asking Congress to intervene and take the next step against online businesses. But see, this is the easy one. Now they're like, hey, everybody, you see how well it worked out for us that the rioters destroyed our competition? Can we do that online? Yes. We need a bill passed. So here comes the lobbying. Here we go. Roving band breaks into Seattle businesses, setting fires and looting. This is what I love the most, right? And I mean that sarcastically. This famous photo from, what is this from? This is from July 23rd. The big ol', I think it's a Whole Foods, racism has no place here. We support the black community. And all the windows are smashed out. You know, part of me is pretty sure the black community isn't going around and doing this. I mean, that was meant to be somewhat of a joke. I mean, I'm literally positive, because I know, it is not the black community going around smashing up and destroying everything. It is, I believe, around half white Antifa progressive types. At least that's what we've seen from some of the data of the makeup of these protests. And then the rest is, varying groups of racial minorities. But for the most part, it is still overwhelmingly white. And that makes sense because the country is overwhelmingly white. So what do you get? An eclectic group that is mostly white going around smashing up businesses that are desperately trying to say they support your cause. Well, you reap what you sow. Reaping meets sowing. Here's from The Hill. Best Buy CEO says rising thefts are traumatic for employees. Oh. November 23rd. Maybe when all of this was going down and the looting and rioting and smashing and grabbing was happening, you could have, defended the police. And you can point out, look, there's no harm in saying that there's a police brutality problem. I'm not trying to pretend like it's the apocalypse. I'm saying there's a problem in that it exists, and we don't want it to exist. However, the scale of the problem is the question. And out of 375 million police interactions, I believe it was like 2019, this metric was, there were like 20 people, unarmed black men who were killed, and like 13 or something of them were shot. So while there are certainly issues, there's a problem that police brutality exists. The question is, does it scale up to the point where we have to take action and shut things down? And is this just the margin of error that we have to accept? And you're going to get these bad stories. I honestly don't know. What I can say is rioting is exacerbated by companies like Best Buy and Target and CVS and all these other, corporations that were trying to play woke. And you know why? I'll tell you the real reason. I certainly think smashing out their competition was a huge benefit for them because they can eat the costs. And I also think they're just cowards. Look at how they put that photo up that said racism has no place here. Oh, please, we know why you're doing that. You're doing it because you're crossing your fingers, don't smash your windows out. And then we see these other stores, and this is what really pisses me off. There's like a storefront, these photos go viral, where it's like, I'm a single mother trying to raise my kids, please spare my store. There was, when I was in Oakland years ago, there's a Burger King, a big sign saying we are a single family owned, we are a family owned franchise, not a corporate location. Please don't break our windows. Who wants to live under that boot? If you do not speak up now, then you do. That's it. To all the people who are like, but I have to make sure my kids have food and I speak up. Okay, fine. Then they'll smash out your windows. They'll drag your kids from your home, whatever. Your kids will grow up in a world not knowing prosperity, not knowing life or liberty. And you'll say, well, at least they got a few years out of it. Because the funny thing is, when people are like, my kids need food, and if I speak up, and I won't be able to provide for them. And it's like, in 20 years, your kids aren't going to, they're going to lose their pursuit of happiness. That's happening now. They're losing their liberty. But worst of all, they're going to lose their lives, okay? Whether figuratively or literally. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I'll tell you this. You think that you can chop down the tree whose shade you sat beneath in the hopes that at least your kid will get to have some of that tree for now. The saying goes, a society grows great when, I'll make it politically correct, when people plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit beneath. You plant a tree, and what does it do for you? But you know that in 50 years, there's going to be someone leaning up against that tree, and they're going to have beautiful shade, and maybe even an apple will fall down into their hand, and they'll get to eat it. And I thought about this. I've told you this story when I was crossing the Williamsburg Bridge in New York one day, just like, man, this massive bridge is just here. This incredible construct that probably cost $1 billion, or who knows? I mean, I shouldn't say who knows, because they literally know what the cost was and you can adjust it for inflation, but a massive expenditure of hundreds of millions of dollars. I paid nothing for it. Just one day I showed up, bridge is there. That is the tree. But I'll tell you this. The people who built that knew they'd literally be able to cross it within the few years it took to build it. So they were like, let's build this and use it. That sounds great. But now what's happening is you have too many people, these CEOs, these corporations, because they're not people in the literal sense. They don't care. And you have many individuals who are like, look, I know things are bad, but let me chop the tree down for the sake of my child today. It's like, okay, that whole thing, your kids are going to grow up. They're going to have some, whatever apples were left on that tree. You're going to use whatever wood of it you can to, sit in a chair. And then they're going to inherit an earth that has a barren wasteland, and they'll be in the gulag going like, they're going to be in their 30s with no teeth and extremely gaunt, looking like they're 50, going like, I remember when I was a kid and I ate an apple once. I love it too, because all the climate change people are going to be like, that's the perfect analogy for climate change. Yes, it is, quite literally. Are you going to plant the tree whose shade you shall never sit beneath so that our society, our world can grow great? Or will you stand back saying, look, there's something here for me now, and I will gut the system and watch it burn? If it means that for the next couple of months my kid has food. Well, now I got bad news for you, because food prices are through the roof. Higher than they've been in a really long time. So here we go. You see these companies' interests are not for the greater good. And it's funny too, because this is the government tries to claim you got to do everything, you got to sacrifice everything, and it's all for the community, and all the people are like vax mandates are for the greater good and all that stuff. And I'm just like, I'll tell you this. The greater good is decentralization. The greater good is prosperity, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because all of that has led to tremendous prosperity and technological solutions to our problems. Elon Musk recently came out and said, you got to have more kids or civilization will collapse. It's because you need people to do things. The level of technology we have is dependent upon a lot of the population. The more people you have, the more specialties exist, the more complex things you can make, and the more comfortably we live. But there is like a cutoff point where you have too many people who do literally nothing, and that's a big challenge. But how to solve for that problem, I think, is through education and building culture and things like that. Elon Musk, he wants us all to have children. And if we don't, what I think will happen is I'll throw it to that story I've been telling on Timcast IRL, the guy who did the TED Talk about how he tried to make his own toaster, and he literally could not make plastic. He was able to make a toaster work for about 20 seconds. He was like, hey, look, this toaster costs $10 or $20, right? So how do if I was going to make it myself, it was impossible. And it cost him, I think, like thousands of dollars to try to make a toaster. This entire machine that we have built is propped up by individual specialties. And there are things that no one person can do. Making plastic, one person can't do that. I'll tell you this. One person can grow wheat. One person can mill the wheat. One person can add the ingredients, raise the chickens and make a loaf of bread. One person can do all of that. One person cannot make plastic. It's impossible. Mostly impossible. But what I should say is one person could do it maybe over like 10 years or something, because you got to get, I think, the crude oil, you got to get it refined. You've got to, I don't even know, I got to be honest, I don't even know how they make plastic. It's petrochemical basically. So good luck, I suppose. One person could find ore and smelt it and make a sword or something. Plastics, though. Plastics are lightweight. They're strong. This is where we are. I should get back to the issue at hand. We'll go back to the main story and not derail on this and just point this out from the Daily Mail. Should we call it undocumented shopping then? Woke criminal experts tell public not to call California crime wave looting because it's racist. I think much of what we're seeing from these big corporations, and I think you would agree, is just gutting the system to strip away wealth and resources. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. People like Bezos, the CEOs of these companies, their mega yachts, they've got their St. Kitts and Nevis, offshore accounts or whatever. If you're not familiar, St. Kitts and Nevis is an island in the Caribbean. I think it's in the Caribbean. Pretty sure. And, or maybe, I guess technically it's like further south or whatever. But it's where rich people go and they buy citizenship. The passports are good most places. There's a bunch of islands like that. Remember the Panama Papers? You know these people have stored their money. There's even the old trope about the Swiss bank account. We know. We get it. They are gutting our country. They are gutting our community. They are destroying everything, cheering for the destruction, funding the destruction, laughing about it, and then skipping off to other countries to do the same. They're effectively barbarians gutting and destroying, raping and pillaging. We're getting ripped off. So the problem is there's no real difference between the massive multinational billion-dollar corporations and the government. And the government has a monopoly on violence, but the big corporations have powerful private security forces that can, to a certain degree, do what they want. So what do you do? How do you solve for the massive centralization of power in this country and the world? Well, I don't have all the answers, but I will tell you this. We mock them. That seems to help. But we also vote locally. We have to vote in the primaries and, vote in your state races. So it's city, it's county, it's state, city. You got to vote in all those things. Then federal. And you've got to primary the establishment. I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans. Primary all of them. You know what would be great? Some like center-left populist Democrats running to compete against the far left, compete against the establishment, win, and then create a more rational and coherent, I shouldn't say unified. We want we want more than two parties, to be honest. But if we could get rid of the crazies and the Democrats and the neocons and just bring in a bunch of hey, regular person here, and the Democrats are, either too far left or too corporatist. Here's an alternative. That's the kind of person you got to get in. But here's the problem. So long as the establishment controls both parties, we're dealing with a big wave of trash. Should the Republicans win Congress, what are they going to do? Matt Gaetz comes out and he's like, we're going to remember everything. And I'm like, yeah, dude, well, if people don't primary the establishment, boring, pathetic losers in the Republican Party, it'll all be for nothing. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all then.